Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Debra Eckerling, founder of the DEB Method for Goal Setting Simplified. I'm also the author of your goal guide and the newly released 52 Secrets for Goal Setting and Goal Getting, How to Stay Focused, Grow Your Network, and Get More Done in Less Time. And for the book, I interviewed 60 awesome achievers in the areas of business, tech, food, entertainment, and other creative fields, and asked them one simple question: what is your secret for goal setting and or goal getting? Very, very on brand. So it's basically the book form of the show. And today and all month and all last month, I am welcoming achievers in the book. And today we're talking about productivity, and it's a skill we all need and want more of. So obviously it's a chapter in the book, but also we've got some great achievers today, including Chris McKenney, who is the founder and CEO of Mango, who released my latest book, baby, and actually my last book, baby, your goal guide as well. Also,
Happy to be a midwife anytime.
Thank you. Troy Sandidge, and he and I are friends from social media days back in that world, which we both still have our toes in to some degree. I think you have more toes than I, but isn't being an author having all your feet, all both,
Of course.
in social media at all times? Anyway, and Kate Wolin, who came to me through our mutual friend Yael Swardlow. And you're from Chicago. Of course, I grew up in the suburbs. We met like 6 months ago. And just that is just the way that we roll. You can't reach your goals on your own. You need your people. And so every week I bring together some of my people to dive into a topic. And you may be watching this as GoalChat Live. You may be watching the replay. You may even be listening to us as an episode of the GoalChat podcast on the Marketing Podcast Network. But no matter how you found us, we are so glad you're here and prioritizing your goals, because you can't get what you want unless you know what that is. Am I right? Of course I'm right. I need to stop talking rhetorically when people are listening to this and maybe cannot see the massive enthusiasm. So, guests, before we jump in, I would love for you all to introduce yourselves, who you are, why you're here, and why you think you are here talking about productivity. And Chris, let's start with you.
Oh my, pressure's on. So,
Yep.
I'm a Miami transplant, and I spent about 20 years in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. And as you may be seeing, especially as the tech bros kind of take over our government right now, that there's always been an emphasis on productivity and technology, solving all problems, and seeing this as a grand solution to everything. And I think I've learned over time that productivity is all about what is most comfortable for you. So I think I'd be probably getting up on the soapbox of go with what flows for you, but don't stop. Keep trying new things. And with that, I think I'll pass the mic.
Well, life is nothing if not a series of trial and error.
I would agree.
Sure, great to see you. Welcome back to GoalChat.
Yes, and congrats once again. I think for productivity, as someone who is a growth strategist and been a marketer for 15 years for a living, troubleshooting, trial and error is always the thing. If you're not used to failure, you'll never be successful. Not to be cliche, that is just the reality of how things work. But I do caution, even now, after all these years and with all these help books and podcasts and all these things we're consuming, we still go back to the problem of staying busy but not being productive. Checking off lists to make us feel the illusion things are working, but we're not really being productive. We're on the hamster wheel doing all these things, complaining about how busy we are. And then we go to another year and we're like, we didn't hit our goals. We didn't write the book. We didn't do the thing because we weren't actually productive. And that comes down to identifying what is the actual goal you're trying to do and what are the actual tasks to move you forward toward that actual goal, not what you're necessarily comfortable of doing What's the things you need to challenge yourself to align on? How do I make sure I master those skill sets to push me forward? And sometimes we need help. Sometimes we need to delegate. Sometimes we need to find a whole new plan because this plan ain't working. So when it comes to productivity, it's about identifying what the actual goal is and what are the actual steps to get you there.
And whereas both Kate and Chris are in the productivity chapters of the book, you're actually in leadership and teamwork. And when it was, well, the whole book was fun. I'll admit, I really, really love this project. But people like you, I could have put you in like 4 different chapters. I could have put you in focus. I could have put you in action. So it was just a matter of
all quadrants.
Yeah, exactly. It was just a matter of rolling the dice and saying, ooh, okay, Troy, you land there. And actually, you are the bonus tip. So you are the actual last tip in the book.
Yes.
Aren't you proud?
That's great.
So Kate, welcome. Happy to have you here.
Thank you. I think I'm probably here because I had a very nonlinear career path. And so, to the points that Troy and Chris were making, I really had to know what my goal was and what my through line was, even though the path might be changing, right? So I started my career in academic medicine. I was not the kid with the lemonade stand who wanted to be an entrepreneur. I ended up there a little bit, by being kicked. And look, it's hard, right? If it was easy, someone would have solved that problem. Someone would have done it. And I had to be really clear on like what my goal was. And for me, a lot of that goal is like, what is the impact I'm trying to have, right? I work in healthcare. I started my career in public health. It's a strange place to have a network in your professional network these days. But I've worked in a lot of types of organizations, and I have to make sure, to Troy's point, like I'm really, really clear on what am I trying to do. And I have to come back to that over and over, because my path to doing that as a medical school professor, as an entrepreneur, as an executive, at a Fortune 5 company, the path looked different, but my goal to have an impact in healthcare has always been the same.
We were talking before we went live, and I was mentioning that when I was in a high school, my big thing was creative writing. So I always thought I'd be the great American novelist rather than author of these nonfiction inspirational books. By the way, I think I chose well. I love this path. But if you had asked me when I was younger what I wanted to do, that would have been what you just said would have been my answer. It doesn't matter as long as I have an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those of us with you want to call it a mix and match career, portfolio career, I love that everybody on this panel is also tech and or tech adjacent, because that's part of it as well. And Chris has a very analog tip, as he is a tech guy, just amused me tremendously. And actually, Kate, your tip was analog-y too. So
yep.
one of you is sticky notes, note cards, and the others notepads. I guess you'll either have to read the book to find out, or one of them will leak it through the conversation. I think we're all in agreement that productivity is what you need to do to get stuff done. Is there anything you'd like to add to that definition, anyone?
I like the word flow these days. Maybe that's a little cliche or from the 90s or something, but it seems to me that there's individual productivity and there's team productivity. And you have to be in the flow both as an individual, but probably more importantly as a team, in order to kind of optimize that productivity. And that's a tricky thing. And I don't think it's ruled by everyone fits into this category or this quadrant or this however they do it. But the communication tools have to be common. This is at least the way I've seen it.
Yeah. And I think those communication tools can often be a barrier to being productive, right? To Troy's point around busy versus actually moving you forward. The someone I know recently stepped away from the C-suite of a very successful startup, and her post on LinkedIn was, in case anyone's wondering, I haven't missed Slack a single day since I left. Right. And it is like, I've worked remotely for 20 years. In one form or another. I highly value those communication tools for enabling me to do that. Right. I'm a working parent. They allow me to be very productive sitting in the lobby of an ice rink at 7:00 at night or whatever I might be doing. But at the same time, they are also the thing that often pulls the team into busy versus productive.
Couldn't agree more. You have to have the communication tools are the requirement. You have to have that in order to coordinate a team and of course communicate with the outside world. But those tools can become an end to themselves.
Yeah.
And that will just ruin you. I mean, my story was I won't say the name of the project management software that we started using as a team, and everyone was very excited. They thought, this is going to save us so much time. And it's a very nifty piece of software, all kinds of bells and whistles, and lots of bells and whistles. So we ended up completely over-engineering it to the point where we couldn't even function without having to interact with this thing. And it basically took over our lives until we shot it in the head and put it away. But the story was, or the lessons were that, we've got to balance those tools to the purpose. And, we can talk about what everyone thinks of email later.
I always question, what's the source code? What's the source of truth? I think many times people who are in leadership, who are delegating the productivity, are building it around their comfort level and their preference, not the preferences, the ability, the acumen, and the understanding of the very people who you've hired or looking to hire to do the very work you need to do. And so you want to build a ship around those who are actually moving the needle and not just someone who isn't actually doing the execution. There might be a translation where you need someone in the middle to have more optimized productivity tools and solutions for those really moving things forward, and maybe a simplified dashboard for the person at the very top who is still stuck on the tools back in the early 2000s and refuses to learn anything new since then, which you have. That's your prerogative. That's your prerogative. But don't let your own comfort level actually hurt the productivity of the entire team because you're choosing one tool that you want to use versus the tool that's necessary for everyone. And last thing I'd say, a lot of this comes into psychology. Within your actual behaviors of those who work with you, work for you, or collaborators, how do they think? How do they communicate? As you all kind of echoed, that's a really bigger, deeper conversation than this one on just understanding the nuances of that to ensure we have full alignment to move this forward. And if you do just maybe 10% more of that before you start the big project and just assign stuff, you might see things move a lot faster, not having to do a million more sprints to fix things that should not have been broken at the beginning.
Yeah. That makes me think of a stat I heard recently that's like 70% of employees are using AI in their job on a regular basis, but companies don't know it, right? Because but they're using it to be productive, right? But the leadership is afraid of various things, right? And so it is not institutionalized. And it's just sort of this fascinating thing, and it's like, it doesn't, to me, as someone who loves an analog, right? And also uses AI in her work every single day, right? Like this, setting up this false premise that it's one or the other, or helping people sort of say we want you to embrace new ways of doing things, right? Here's how to think about making risk decisions, right? And empowering people to make good choices. Because to your point, Trey, you've hired high performers to be on your team for their expertise. And then you put these systems in place that actually block their productivity.
The
So
tool has to enhance the productivity, has to make things better, or it's not worth having around.
I like you're psychic or something, because that is definitely, well, this is the theme that I'm hearing. Two things. First of all, like goals, productivity is a team sport. You can't do these things on your own, and you want to find the right tool for the correct assignment. In looking at these tools, just in remembering that they are tools, I think that's a step in the right direction. They are meant to enhance. Is that not the definition of a tool? Something that makes something else easier?
And tools have a life cycle.
Yeah.
It's, and I'll fax you more on that in just a second.
I couldn't think of a better way to ask this. I want to know what you all, because you've dabbled into this already, but what do you think is the biggest killer of productivity?
Bureaucracy.
Oh yeah, let's get all existential. Yes, okay.
Informational meetings. That's my bugaboo.
Okay, thank you for bringing it down to earth a little bit. Thank you.
I've got a tool that can help you not need to have informational meetings.
Oh, we try not to. I mean, I try to get kind of nasty and shut those down. But
And what do you think, Troy?
I think unrealistic, unobtainable goals at unrealistic timelines with crazy deadlines. Like, no.
Okay, so how do we counter that? I mean, it seems obvious to say, okay, well, then you just want realistic everything, but that doesn't always happen. So I will re-ask the question. What kills productivity and how do we fix it? Don't all talk at once.
Yeah, I'll jump back to the flow issue.
Okay.
I think you can create virtuous cycles and you can create non-virtuous cycles. And that to some extent, without getting too, I only took one intro class in neuroscience, but I think there's some dopamine going on there. And if you can build a virtuous cycle through providing that sort of feedback, that gratification to the individual and to the teams, and build on that, it tends to feed it. It tends to get its own perpetual energy to it. But it's also very easy to break. So the key is monitoring that culture and constantly tweaking and trying to refine it, because being in that sort of virtuous flow is just, it's a beautiful thing. Almost brings tears to my eyes when a team is working that well.
Isn't it? It is. It's really cool when you get the well-oiled machine, but apparently we are not machines, we are people. So that you have to add the humanity into it, right?
So Chris is talking I like hear a lot of motivation and the psychology of motivation and what Chris is saying, right? And one of the theories of motivation that I end up using a lot in my work is self-determination theory, that has 3 pillars to it, right? One is that people have autonomy, right? The second is that they have competence, right? Like that they feel like they're set up for success, that they're learning and progressing. And the third piece is the relatedness, right? The connection to the team, right? Which Chris, is talking about. So as he's talking about that, like that's, you're if you don't feel like the deadlines and the expectations are realistic, you don't feel like you're going to achieve them and you don't feel competent. Right. And so, if you've got this bureaucracy pushing down on you, you don't feel like you have the autonomy, right, that motivates you to be successful. So to me, like, it kind of comes back to this, like the motivation that people need to go and keep pushing, right? Because the first path you take to achieve your goals almost never works, right? You get something wrong, then you have to adjust the path and keep going. And to do that, you have to stay motivated. Wait,
did you say almost never works?
I mean, look, I I am a data-driven person. I don't want to say that it has never worked, that someone,
Oh,
But
the
don't believe
reason
the hype.
the reason
I mean, isn't
that
that
I'm
the whole
laughing
story of
at it,
Silicon Valley? Is like, I did this thing and I had all
I
the answers and it was successful right out
I
of the
climbed to
gate.
the top of Mount Tamalpais. I sat in the lotus position, and I came up with the most brilliant strategy that I've been carrying on for 20 years, and it's made me a billionaire. Maybe
By
not true.
myself.
And buy it for
Maybe,
only
yeah, by myself.
$27.99.
Probably not.
I laugh because when I do my Deb method, my goal setting workshops, I am all about the foundation, writing things out, taking a look. And I had one time when I said this light, we can't figure things out in our heads. Someone said, I can. I said, okay, most of us can't figure things out in our heads. So you're absolutely right. Most of the time, it takes a lot of attempts to get to the right thing, to reach the goal. But that's why we have, that's what the journey's for. Harking back to your goal guide a little bit. So Joy, what do you think?
I always like to put things on ice. Identify, consolidate, eliminate, or expand. I think sometimes people just need to slow down, identify what it is working, what is not, identify who is productive, who is moving the needle, who isn't given the spotlight, or even ask, what should we do? Like, who are we missing from the conversation? Who have we not considered? Let's eliminate titles, bureaucracy, all of it. Who needs to be in this room? Who has an idea? Can we consolidate things that aren't working? And either we need to eliminate tasks or flows, or we need to expand tasks or flows into more micro steps to take to see what's progressing and what's not. And I think taking that breather from a literal and metaphorically speaking approach just help people, even if you don't have the tools, even if you don't have the people yet, we at least know what we probably could do and what can we do right now as we're progressing toward a change versus like shut it all down, destroy it all, start from scratch. That doesn't help either. That actually puts you in a worse spot versus, okay, this is where we are. Let's accept this reality. Let's consolidate and compress our resources and expand or eliminate it as needed within the conscious group of understanding this is a way forward. That actually earns trust. And people feels like, though I don't have a solution, I have a construct plan for everyone to think through this with the hopes that we can improve our odds of actually getting through this to be more productive and also more successful achieving our goals than not.
I'm hearing a lot of like hackathon-y language in there. Is it just me?
I think it's simple, but I talk in mnemonics for people to just process things all the time. So not hacks. I don't like to use that, though. That is part of naming culture by brand per se.
Right. No, I was thinking more in the hackosphere where you do hackathons and the only purpose is to come up with the idea. The idea is great, but then you need the skills of teamwork, leadership, productivity. See, like how I folded those together in order to take the idea and make it into a something or an amazing something.
Yeah. I think when Troy's point around like, right, when you move from idea to execution, right, like there's this tendency sometimes to be like, toss it, right? And his point of like not getting the matches and burning it all down, I think really resonates with me, right? Is sort of, if you slow down, like, what did we learn from this iteration, right? Like, if in tech, we do a lot of agile product development, right? And so you're doing a lot of learning cycles. And so I think, that Troy's framing of that is a way to make sure you're learning and not just like ditching things when they don't work.
So for each of you, what one thing do you feel makes you as a human most productive? And it could be two things if you can't decide. Kate, do you want to start?
The honest answer?
No, lie. Yes, the honest answer.
The honest answer is imposter syndrome.
Okay. Discuss. Explain. Expand.
Right. I mean, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to prove them wrong. I've got, there's a whole lot of me getting here that is just grind. And I'm not recommending it. I'm not saying it's a good strategy. But it's like when I was a college student and I wanted to get an internship because I had heard internships would help you get a job, and my internship was unpaid and I would have had to stay in Boston. And my mother was like, you can get $10 an hour cleaning bathrooms like you did last summer. Like, why would you stay in Boston and pay rent? And, and it was like, all right, I'm going to prove you wrong. And I took the unpaid internship and I worked at Starbucks and, right. And oh gosh, 15 years later, my mom a few times was like, I just want you to know that you were right and I was wrong. And that internship was a really good idea. Right. But like, that was a tough summer, right? Of like all, internship and then, closing Starbucks in Cambridge every night, making a lot of Frappuccino.
Yeah, I cleaned a lot of bathrooms too.
So, yeah, that was the summer before. Yeah, I'm right. But it was sort of like it's like that. I could say it's persistence, right? And the grit. But the reality is the motivator behind that is like, because I feel like I have something to prove, and I'm just going to go hard at it to prove it.
There's a lot of power in owning what you plan to become. Whether it's dressed for the job you want, or just, and I do this a lot because I work with authors on their book proposals and other projects, and I'm like, congratulations, you are now the queen of this or the king of that. That is the first step, is to own your experience and your body of knowledge. And then you could do anything because you've got that going for you. So whether you're there yet or not, doesn't matter. You still have to own it. So I love that. So Joy, what do you believe makes you most productive?
Leaning on what Dr. Kate said a little bit, because that echoed very much with me all the way through, I'm being honest. I honestly feel to maximize productivity, you have to be comfortable with pain. I think pain intentionally in the right dosage allows you to develop more power. And you do not get strength and success without struggle. You insert whatever analogy you want there. But I really think there's some truth in
do you have an example?
Every time I've had to level up in my professional life required me to sacrifice a lot of time. It required me to optimize and modify and get really focused on what I needed, which was painful because you're missing out on so many other things in the short term, chasing this thing in the long term that to you feels very clear, but to the outside world may not be as clear, may not be as direct. And that what separates those who are really productive to a very high goal that very few achieve versus maybe what everyone kind of achieves, and it doesn't make you as special, respectfully. So I think some of that is just understanding like the intensity of what you may have to endure as you pursue the level of productivity necessary. And keep in mind that AI, tools, technology does not solve your problems. They aid you, they assist you. It still requires you to do X amount of effort. And 9 times out of 10, if not at all, I won't give you 100% of the time, but 9 times out of 10 is going to require more effort than what you've done right now. And you could be watching, listening, be like, but please give me the 1-2 tools, the one hack that's going to help me add the extra 0, make this faster. That sounds great and sexy in theory, but in all honesty, it doesn't eliminate you from actually doing the work and deal with the pain and agony that may come with the resistance of getting to that next level of productivity. And we're all given the same 24 hours. Technology and AI can help you minimize some of those things so you can expedite that time in other areas. It still requires you to invest that time intentionally, strictly in those areas to make those things work.
I believe work ethic is another theme that have coming up with different people's contributions within the book. You need to, Katie Chin's was don't dream harder than you work, or be able to look at yourself in the mirror, which was Chef Rossi. Yes, 2 more chefs. Anyway, the point being is a part of being productive is owning who you are and what you want. And then you have to do the things you need to do to get there. The other thing that you said but didn't say, Joy, is sometimes you have to give up stuff to do the other stuff. And that, I think, is also part of the struggle, pain, whatever we're calling it. We're calling it pain? Okay.
Discomfort.
Discomfort.
In meditation, we talk about sitting in the discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of discomfort zones. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that. That's new yoga. Get in your discomfort zone. That's good. I think that could be a book. Anyway, Chris, speaking of books, what do you believe makes you the most productive?
Well, I don't think I'm at all special in any of this. I think that there are, being a parent and watching your kids grow up and seeing the different levels of self-awareness as they start to learn who they are and what is at their core beings, I think ends up becoming one of the most predictive of variables for productivity and some other different measures of success or accomplishment. So I think I would put it into self-awareness, and maybe tell one other kind of funky anecdote that occurred to me when this conversation started. I had a really wonderful relationship with my father who passed away last year. And growing up, it was not so wonderful. It was quite challenging because he had very high expectations, was an absolute workhorse. I mean, just never stopped. I mean, working all weekend long, he had a massive task list and carried through on that. And I used to frustrate the heck out of him because he would show me how to do something. Like when I was probably 8 years old, he said, "All right, rake leaves." Okay, here's a rake. You rake them into a pile, and then you carry them one by one on top of the rake and throw them basically in the other people's yard. And I didn't like that. And I tinkered with it for a while and figured out, wait a second, I can get a blanket or just an old sheet and throw them on there and drag them over. And then I didn't have to put them all in the neighbor's yard. I could put them in the proper place. And while he admired that, he just didn't get it, that I had to do that. And that was, slowly started to become a student of myself and understand that was what motivated me to do the job. It would have driven me nuts. I just couldn't. I was paralyzed in trying to do it the way that he was teaching me.
You just gave a very good commercial for the book, unintentionally, I am sure. But it's all about the secret to success is there is no one secret. What you do is you see what works for others, learn, use what works for you, and or adapt them. I remember when I was a kid, this is the memory it pulled for me, is I liked raking leaves because I thought it was really cool. And I would rake them so I could jump into them. But then the pile was so nice and neat, I didn't have the heart to. So I just, would bag them up and put them where they needed to be. It's all perspective, I guess, along with the self-awareness piece. And you all answered this question in very non-specific terms. So I want the scoop. I want the anecdotes. What for each of you is going to kill your productivity the most? What makes you the least productive? Do you want to start as Chris?
Emotional conflict.
Ooh, that's a good one. Keep going.
I rely on my relationships very heavily. I mean, there's a lot of, when I think about, why I started up a publishing company, when that's probably about the worst financial decision you could possibly make in your life. And it always comes back to the people and the relationships with them, and the sort of juice and motivation that I get out of that, and I hopefully can kind of give back in equal proportions. So when there's sand in the gears and there's some sort of a conflict that rational or irrational just is just not easily talked out. I mean, there's always going to be conflict and there's always going to be disagreements of opinion, but you hope that you have an environment where people are on the same track. And I think when I've had that in the past, because I mean, fortunately with Mango, that's been a very rare occasion, but in past jobs where I, had less to do with who was on the team, I guess, there were conflicts that just broke me. I was paralyzed and distraught. It was just very difficult for me to move forward.
I think you really honed in on something that people get but rarely acknowledge. It's not my. The conflict isn't. It's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's the fact that there is a conflict. I think is what you're saying. Yes.
Well, it's that there's always going to be conflict, but there isn't a pathway to resolution.
Mm-hmm.
That most things can be resolved, I think, through, maybe I'm being a little too hopeful in 2025, but through diplomacy and listening and being generous and abundant of mind and not zero sum in your thinking. But that's not always possible. And when those things are not possible and all other items have been, other pathways have been exhausted, I get really down. And I find myself frozen.
Okay, who wants to follow that perky? But relevant.
Hey, you asked the question, Deb.
It's a great answer.
It is a wonderful answer. I like to think of this as the most optimistic show on the planet that has deep conversations. So, no, I appreciate that. I think the other part of it is that people do not, it goes back to self-awareness. Part of it is knowing how you operate and what's going to impact you. Then you need to put that microscope on it, the magnifying glass, and say, okay, now what do I do? Is there something I can do?
Yeah.
So, Kate, want to take the reins? Please help me out of here.
Yeah, I think like my quippy answer, right, is meetings, right? Because like Chris, I don't like informational meetings. I think the reality of it is the way that I like to do things, like even when I was, like a high school student, is I like to crank through the really, really rough first draft, right? And get that out. And then I do a lot of iterating and revising. And I do that in a lot of the ways I work. So, it's like when I have an idea for a blog post, it's like 3 words on a note card. And then it's like, and I'll work my way through it. But that means I need chunks of time to do that thinking, right? And to do that work. And so when I have a lot of meetings in my calendar, I don't have any of those blocks of time to do that thinking, right? To actually think through the implications of the decisions, to do the ice that Troy talked about and really reflect, right? When there is drama, to sort of say like, hey, can we align on the data, right? Can we say, okay, we all agree that these are the facts and we might weight the facts differently, right? But to me, like when there's space in bandwidth, right? For emotional space, it comes from physical space. And my calendar is one of the places with too many meetings that I start to feel that lack of space most acutely. And so for me, like when I look at my calendar and I just don't have the space to do that sort of thing, I know I'm just not going to be as productive as I can be. And so the way that is shown up, when I had a startup, we had a really small team. So we just didn't need as many meetings, right? Because we could all quickly have a call, chat across the desks in those darn co-working spaces, whatever it might be. But, the larger the organization, the more likely you are to have these informational meetings, or, you don't know why you're in a meeting. You're just invited to a meeting. And right. So earlier when I was like bureaucracy, like those are the sorts of things.
Meeting without agenda.
Meeting without like any notes or anything. So if I miss it, I don't know what I missed, and was a decision made that impacts me or my team, which I don't like, right? When my team is bearing the burden of decisions we weren't a part of. So I think for me ends up being this thing of like, it is much harder for me to be productive in really large organizations, because all of that sort of constrains my ability to have autonomy over the space in my calendar.
Awesome. No, it goes to self-aware and how you're most productive, but also boundaries. I feel like boundaries need to be in the same sort of conversation as well, because you need to know what you're willing to give up
Mm-hmm.
in order to get other things done.
Yeah. And it's, it's like, am I going to walk into a Fortune 100 company and say, actually, I don't do meetings on Friday? Like, no, right? I might be able to say my team is going to try to have no meeting Fridays, right? So that my designers can get creative and my engineers can do, really be in the code. And we're going to try and do that for our team, right? But, like I don't have but on a smaller team, like I can actually have that conversation at a ELT meeting, right? And sort of say like, hey, let's, a client needs something. Yeah, we all got to jump on it. But like, let's try to do this across our teams so that everyone benefits from it. That's a much easier thing to do in a smaller organization.
So finding the win-win-wins is really at the heart of what makes you the most productive. Yeah. Okay. I like to put little bows on things.
Okay.
So Troy, what makes you the least productive? You're everywhere, by the way. In a good way.
I am a multi-potentialite, so it comes with the territory of just not being a one-trick pony. I think for me, oh my goodness, micromanagement is a trigger, which creates a lack of trust, which creates doubt, which creates hesitation, which creates not getting things done. 1, not on time. 2, probably not in the best quality. And 3, disgruntledly. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like if you're going to micromanage someone who is proven and experienced, and you lack that experience, and you're micromanaging that person or those teams, you need to learn how to lead better. You're part of the problem to the productivity slowing down or not being active at all. I'd also say, from doing a lot of work with one of my coaches for a long time, and we called it the Superman Batman paradox, where you're looking at this from perspective, what fuels you? I'm purpose driven. And I realized, similar to you, Dr. Kate, when I work with a lot of startups and it's like, just go, go, go. I'm doing like 10 times more than probably what I would do in a corporate situation. But because there's more freedom and it aligns with my purpose, I don't even realize how much I'm getting done. I'm just in my flow state. Soul from Disney, when they're in that state, they're just,
Yes.
He's there. He is in the zone. There's nothing that could break this person because they're at peak zone power. But then how do we get there? And that's where the Superman Batman complex came in. For me, as a person of color, as a marginalized community, as someone who had to get it out the mud everywhere he went, I could be experienced, I could be proven, I could have the titles, and it didn't matter. I still had to prove myself that I could do it, even though I did it. And so I would use the Batman energy. I'd be spite. I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to darkness and go. And That's very effective at times. I promise you, it surely is. But it's also poisonous.
Yeah.
And over time, if you use that as your ultimate fuel source all the time, it will drain you, and your productivity is going to drop one day, and you ain't going to have it back. It's going to be gone. And so we were trying to figure out, well, how do we recalibrate myself to wean off this fuel source of spite to embrace more joy, the Superman, where he's just like, I'm max power, but I'm coming from a place of joy and happiness. And some of that is aligning your boundaries, using tools that is not meant for you to micromanage me. It's meant for you to know what I'm doing without interrupting my flow. Great. It's a miracle. We can eliminate 25 meetings by just looking at my thing I just told you I was doing, and don't ask me a million times what I'm doing. Oh my God. Technology is amazing if you use it. So from productivity, I think it's understanding what your fuel source is, and check if your fuel source is maybe powerful but poisonous, and make sure that we're aligned where you're being fueled in a way that's sustainable for you to be productivity have high productivity all the time. It does you no good to be productivity at 25% every so often. I mean, sure, sprints are great, but they still want you maximum output during a sprint, rest, repeat. If you can't sustainably do that, what's your fuel sources? How are you navigating it? And for me personally, similar to you, Chris, I'm a 2 wing 3. I'm an ENFJ or ENFP, depending on the year. I am 1,000,000% aligned with my emotion. If I am emotionally checked out of this thing, and and the passion and the purpose isn't there, I don't care if I've done this a million times, I'm going to be terrible at it because it doesn't align for me. That's my fuel source at my core to keep my guiding light going. And I know people want, more tech and less woo-woo and all this stuff, but I think if you understand the psyche of yourself, you can apply the technology to make you your best self.
Very well said. And I'd love to say that Superman can fly and Batman lives in a cave. So
But he has all the
not that
Yes, and Batman's got all the good tech.
but he
What
is
is
pretty
that
cool.
for a
Yeah.
reason. He's going through negative spites.
Well, I am all about operating from the place of joy because you get more energy from what you're doing. I think I say this every week. When you love what you do, it shows. When you don't love what you do, it really, really shows. So why not love what you do? Because you're going to get better, faster, further to where you want to go. Not to say it isn't.
Worst review questions. How about those? How are you going to improve on your weaknesses? And, it's like.
So this is
what good does that do you guys?
Fun learning I had.
Just fire me.
One of the places managers most wanted to use AI was in writing performance reviews. And of course, if you think about the place where humans should most be doing something, it is in writing their team's performance reviews. But it is remarkable how little information you can put into the AI engines and have them write a 3-page performance review that would pass the muster in corporate America.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are so unhelpful and formulaic when in their typical doing.
Wow.
Amen.
So remember,
performance reviews are sometimes used as a construct to minimize your actual effort in something in productivity. Because you're not good. You said I'm marginal. I did the work, but I'm not a 5. I'm a 3. Still, why? I've done everything ahead of schedule. Got to question those systems sometimes.
This is why, even if you are working with other companies, it is important to know your own goals and how they align with the business goals. I love when I get to do these workshops at a company before performance review time, because it starts with, what are you most proud of? Great. Take that energy and move it forward, which is, in a way, what Troy was just saying. Find what fuels you, do more of that, because you're going to it's going to make you more productive when you're doing the things that spark joy. And it sounds so simple, but we are not at a lack of joy in the universe. We could always use more. And sometimes we could use a lot more. So let the joy fuel your productivity so you could do more, and then we're going to save the world. How's that for tying everything up in a perfect little bow? Really intriguing, important conversation. I would love for you all to gift a goal to the audience. So what is something that they could do today, tonight, tomorrow, to either take a look at their own productivity or just to make themselves more productive, or really anything you want. So Troy, what goal would you like to gift?
Cancel your morning meeting. Just cancel it. If you got to tell someone, hey, I need to reschedule, whatever your morning meeting is, cancel it. And use that hour as like joy time. Whatever brings you joy, just like sit in that joy time. I don't care, binge a Netflix episode, only one. Walk your dog, play with your children, whatever you need to do, watch puppy videos, whatever brings you joy for that hour, just fuel that up. It may not make any sense, but I'm trying to ask you to, for once, don't jump into your day. You wake up, you get your coffee, you jump right into, I got to be max productivity. Let's just ease into our day and start with joy and see what happens.
Oh, I love that. Should we cancel all the morning meetings or just start with one?
I don't have enough clout to command that, but do at your own risk.
Start with one.
At least do one.
Amazing. Okay, Chris, what goal do you want to gift?
Oh, can Dr. Kate go first?
Sure.
I'm still thinking
Sure,
about Troy's
sure.
there, and I'm like, wow.
I mean, mine was similar to Troy's. I mean, mine was like to slow down and take the time to reflect. So he said to choose joy, right? But I think there is this finding that space to really pause and reflect on what brings you joy, what is your goal, how are you going to have the impact that you want to have. What are the boundaries you need to set to get there, right? And so it's really hard to think about those things when you're in the grind. And so just like to take that pause and to sit in the discomfort of the answer may not come right away, right? So like just take the pause.
Okay, so we have to do your goal before we do Troy's goal.
No, because I think finding the joy might motivate you to take the pause. Right. If you're not feeling any joy, right. Like you're just like, you're going to sit in that pause and you're just going to sit in the suck. Right. And so I think you have to have found some joy before you can sit in the discomfort.
Okay. Find the joy, take the pause. I like it. Do we give you enough time or do we want to keep talking, Chris?
Oh, no, I think I'm ready, but I was trying not to make it too Batman. Because
you
what I was
could be
thinking
as
of
Batman as you want.
when Troy was suggesting that, I was also thinking about the opposite, which is at the end of the day, you're just feeling exhausted, and you feel like, and you know, your loved one asks you, "How's your day?" and you're like, "Not so good." I've made every mistake in the book, but the times when I've had the foresight to say, wait a second, okay, I'm going to either take some time now, because I'm the sort of person that can fall asleep easily, but then wakes up with a problem at 4 a.m. and I just can't go back to sleep. So usually right after that thought occurs to me and I've put my pen down for the day, then gifting myself some quiet time just to kind of reflect on what it was, get to the kernel, what was probably, causing me that bad day. And maybe it is emotional conflict or maybe it is something else, but, really getting to the heart of that means that I'm probably going to have a better night's sleep and a much better day the next day when I skip my morning meeting.
Full circle. We've come full circle.
Yes.
Well done, team.
24/7.
Excellent. So we actually start with you at the end of the day. Untangle what is challenging you so you can sleep better, so you can be more productive, so you could have a joyful meeting, and so you're in the zone to really think about what's next for you.
But
Ooh,
hopefully
I love
you've done what Troy did, which was you've started the day with some joy. You've had a very productive and satisfying day, and then you hang out with Netflix, or do whatever you're going to do. Sorry, read a book. Read Deb's book.
or reflect at the end of the day. So it's the cycle of reflect or wake up with joy, do something awesome. And I do always say that if a meeting cancels on me, rather than filling it with work, I do like to fill it with joy. So I particularly love doing it on actual purpose. So you start with joy, you have reflection time to kind of sit with that goodness. And at the end of the day, if there's something tying you in knots, deal with it so you can sleep well and begin your day again with joy. It's a cycle. Look at that. I love how, first of all, and I don't know if I said this at the beginning, unless it's on purpose, my guests don't know each other. These guests just met. The fact that they're all people who love the aspects of productivity and flow and leadership was just like a bonus that they all came together in this, I think, really important
I
conversation.
really like you guys. I want to hang out.
I know.
Yeah, I feel like we had like a Love Is Blind experience, but like productivity and like growth strategy. Like, Debra, let's keep this going. Like, and in this, we should have a full cycle. The chain is complete.
Amazing. Well, you all know that you're all welcome back to GoalChat to either be together or to meet new friends. Whenever someone says, "Oh, this was last week, I spoke on a podcasting panel," and I told them whenever anybody asked me what my favorite form of networking is, I said it's my live show, because if I haven't seen a friend in a while, I invite them on, or if I want friends to meet, I'll put them on a show together. But that's there's so many gifts from technology. I mean, this book was basically born out of these kinds of conversations where I am gifting the people who tune in inspiration and motivation from people who've been where they are. And this is what they have done. And the book is like a choose your own adventure. What do I need to learn? What do I need to try next? And go with we started talking about trial and error. That's what productivity is. Try the things, see what works, do more of those, and less of the things that don't work. Because in our own path, the road changes, but who we are doesn't. Our mission, our values,
principles and values.
those don't change. So we just need to learn what works for other people so we can put more of our good into the world. Where can people learn more about each of you? Chris?
I imagine our website, which needs a good scrape, but there's some information there. I don't know. I'm not going to write a book. I'm sorry. It's not in me. But.
I don't know. Maybe if we hang out more, I can be a good influence on you. No, you can, and if you go to the debmethod.com/blog, there'll be the recap and the replay and the links. And I will usually put everybody's website along with their LinkedIn, so those who are tuning in can connect with one and or all of us. So Mega Publishing Group, Troy, where can people find Troy?
At findtroy.com, at findtroy, all over the internet. You found me. Congratulations, you did it. Podcast as well as I Digress, which is not Find Troy, but feel free to listen there too.
Excellent. Thank you. And Kate, where can people learn more about you?
drkatewolin.com.
Easy peasy. I like it. And again, great conversation. What final thought? Oh, wait. I'm the Deb Method everywhere. You can go to thedebmethod.com/blog. And I'm live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And you can also subscribe to GoalChat on your favorite podcast platform. Before we wrap, what final thought would each of you like to leave us with? Chris, final thought?
Wow.
Okay, who's got the dancing monkeys?
No, I think it sounds like a dog.
Oh, it's
with
my
a
dog.
hair.
It is my dog. I'm sorry. My daughter left for practice and my dog came
okay?
storming in. He's fine. Small dogs tend to have a collapsed trachea. Here's your fun fact. And so when they, it like feels like when you have a scratchy throat, and so they cough to relieve it. He's not dying. It's not a goose. It's just a small,
You know what? It
special
sounded
needs
like.
rescue dog.
Now I feel bad for comparing it to one of those monkeys with the tamarines.
We make fun of him all the time because he's very sweet and he can take it.
It was definitely the dog's version of a hairball.
It is. It's Alf. Remember Alf, the TV show?
Of course.
Yes. It's like that.
Going back there.
Excellent.
Well, I would leave the thought of find your flow and find your team's flow, because there's nothing more satisfying, I think, in a work life sense.
That's good. And so, Kate, what is your final thought?
My final thought is that this is a great example of why I'm so grateful to the people around me, because even when I'm supposed to be on something, sharing what I know, like framed up as someone who knows something, I learn more than I have told. And that is a testament to all of you. And so I'm just really, really grateful for the opportunity to have learned from all of you.
And I've taken notes.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here and for being part of the book. I'm gonna, just because I believe learning from others really just makes you better in all of the things. I think that's kind of the whole purpose of the book and of these conversations. So again, thank you, Yael, and thank you for being part of this project that is very, it's dear to me for many reasons, but part of it is because we all need that extra uplifting. And I love that this book really does its part in helping people find their paths, whether they're in a good spot and want to get better, or they need to get to that good spot. So there's really everything there. So thank you for being here, and thank you for saying that. Joy, what is your final thought?
Do the thing, be the thing, become the thing. I think all of us in this panel, which we've never met, which I think we're friends now, we're cool. I think sometimes the perception is we've done it all and we're going to be from this high mountain. Here's all the things, where even this moment, I know Dr. Kate talked about this too, about imposter syndrome. Oh my gosh, I've become this thing. And now you compare yourself to, can I talk in this way? Maybe I talk differently. Maybe my references are different. I am the least qualified person to be here type energy. And think about it this way. If someone didn't speak their truth to inspire you when they felt like they weren't qualified to do it, you wouldn't be inspired to do what you were meant to do. And that's what we're activating in real time because of Debra up here. So I would encourage you to do the thing and become the person. Who cares what you say you're not qualified today? You could be qualified just like that by tomorrow, by just taking the steps and doing what you actually feel called to do and what you want to do. And when you lead with that, your productivity will actually follow because it aligns with your purpose. Boom.
Ooh, I love that you tied it back to productivity. And thank you for that. And thank you, Chris. Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Kate, for joining me. Thank you for tuning in. Just to kind of underline a highlight, it is your life. You get to make these choices every day on how you spend your time. The more you spend it being you and doing the things that bring you joy, the more productive you are going to be, and you have a voice. So why wouldn't you share that with the world? Thank you again, panel. Thank you all for tuning in. You can learn more again at thedebmethod.com/blog, and you can grab a copy of my beautiful new book, baby, 52 Secrets for Goal Setting and Goal Getting, where you will get tips from Troy and Kate and Chris. And it's 52 secrets, but there's 60 achievers in the book. So the three of them and 57 others, find what works for you and go out, work toward your goals, because we know you can do it.